Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. It's great to see you, friends and colleagues, and it's been great to hear your feedback as well as some of your ideas for things that I'm doing here and things that we can do to help mentor and help bring up some of the youth in this industry that we call the live events industry. I'm very excited today to continue the topic of my story, where I came from, and hopefully give a little bit of insight into things that can help in your own growth with the company that you're in or your own career path that you're working on. Personally, for me, I got to stick with one company for a very long time, so I think we're going to have a few chapters here that really revolve around that time and what we did there. In my last episode, we had a good chat while I was driving into the National Sports Forum in Boston, talking about what it meant to get experience and what it meant to get as many reps as possible in this industry and to meet as many people and honestly to say yes, to take the gigs and to get your name out there. A lot of the feedback has been great. Not to boast too much. I've got YouTube Studio open over here. In the last 30 days, we have added a grand total. We got another one since I started recording. We've added 117 subscribers just in 30 days. This channel's really only been active for about 2 months now. I think I started it mid-January, and here we are early March. So yeah, it's been about 2 months. I really appreciate everybody's help and what people have done. I've got a lot of really cool things in the works. We've got some interviews lined up, some in person that we're going to try to do a multi-camera shoot, some over Zoom. It's just the world we live in. We can't fly everywhere. And there's some really interesting people around the country that I think have great stories and really understand what it means to break out and get past some of the barriers that you might feel are put up but aren't actually there. So we talked about experience in the last episode. I think a good place to start here is around the topic of growth. Basically, to recap what we spoke about in the last episode, college life wasn't great for me. I ended up going full-time with a company called Presentation Services, which later became PSAV and is now called Encore Global. My first few years there are really what we spoke about in the last episode. I had a great time. I had mentors there. I had leaders that were willing to take a risk on me, take a chance. I also had to put in the work. I had to put in the effort to make sure that the risk and the gamble people took on me as such a young technician would pay off. So here we are. I would say a few years in, started to make a name for myself in the company, started to make a name for myself in the region of New England, and really took it to another place personally for my own personal brand. I ended up volunteering for a position while I was in an assistant director role. Basically, the way that the hierarchy works at a hotel property back in those days, it's a little different now, was you started as a technician, you kind of worked your way up into some of these other roles, and the career path was more about getting into leadership. So once I was really interested in getting into the minutia of how to operate a property, how to run a team, how to manage the financials, how to get into forecasts and actuals, and really planning the operations as well as the numbers for a property, you really have to move into directorship roles. I became the assistant director at the Omni Parker House, which is the oldest continuously operated property in the country. I think still. I don't think they've closed since. I'll have to check my facts on that. But smaller property. It was a nice property to learn the basics in. Had a director above me. When I first started, it was Chris Smith, who was a great person to learn from. Really good at the numbers and the forecasting side of things. Taught me a lot about the business when it came to how many people do we want to have on staff, understanding of P&L, profit and loss, understanding all of the financials. It was great to work under Chris, and I learned a lot from him. During my time there isn't much to talk about other than I got to work under Chris, and a little while later I worked under a friend of mine, John Bleskin, who we crossed paths multiple times in the industry and in the company at PSAV. We'll talk about him a little bit later when we get into product management. But while I was there, I was tasked with assisting on a team that was working on our order entry system, our CRM system, basically everything that the company was going to use to manage all of the orders, all of the sales, all of the customer management across the whole company at the property level. And I joined that team. At the time, it was called Helios. It was a cool program that I got to have a lot of my fingerprints were all over it. And it became a full-time job within the company. I had to join this team, and I worked under two people that ran the team. Mike Ellis, who I still follow to this day on TikTok, watching him doing, he does a lot of esport racing, which is a lot of fun to see and see him be passionate about it. He was always passionate about NASCAR in those days. And Chad Cunningham, who came from the branch side of the business, which was their more regional offices that did the productions, while Mike came from kind of the hotel side of the business where I was coming from. Those guys were great. I had nothing negative to say about that experience at all. I got to learn a lot about how the company worked, got to learn a lot about the corporate structure. I got to learn a lot about sales initiatives and strategies. It was kind of a boot camp for me, and what an experience that I got from it. So for about a year, we were building this program that had already had a foundation to it, Helios. And while I was there, I got to meet a lot of other really cool people within the company that while my career path progressed as the years went on, I got to visit these people a lot. I'll never forget working with Glenda, who was at the front desk. She did so much more than just be a front desk person for PSAV and later Encore, but she was this smiling, happy person that always brought a smile and was always willing to laugh, and she was always so happy. She recently, 2 years ago, I believe, passed away from cancer, but Encore's done a good job of keeping her memory alive and making an award on their annual Excellence Awards, which we'll talk about a little bit in this channel. They actually have a Glenda Van Jaarsveld award, memorial award, which is brought a tear to my eye last year when I saw that for the first time. But she was always the first person you saw when you walked into the corporate office, and she was always, how are your kids? When social media became a real thing, she was always following everybody in the company. She'd always ask me how my kids were. She'd ask me how my wife was. She knew their names. It was just a great person to have greet you every day when you were at the corporate office. And while we were working on this program, I had to go to the corporate office a lot. We did a lot of remote work from home. Eventually, I moved to the branch office for Boston and worked out of there just because there was so much to do and there was so much testing that needed to be done. I needed to be in a real world facility for a while. I couldn't just do this out of my house. I did work from the Omni for a little while till it just didn't make sense. And then I started working out of the home office that I had for a few months, and then ended up in the Boston branch office working with that team to try to get some ideas, but also have them understand what we were trying to do, and then understand how this was going to work at a regional level, installing this software and rolling this out. So Mike and Chad were awesome. I learned a lot from them. I learned a lot from working with the sales teams at PSAV. Frank Fehrenbach was an amazing person that I learned a lot from over the years. We ended up working at a couple of different companies together after PSAV, but learned a lot about the sales process, learned a lot about customer relationships, learned a lot about strategy from him and from Mike and Chad. There isn't really too much to talk about the program itself. We tried to build an all-in-one program. We were successful. That worked across all of the different divisions of PSAV, the hotel division, the branches, what we called offsites, the meeting services division, which was kind of our convention trade show. They're the ones that traveled around the country doing conventions, and then our show solutions division, which was our big shows out of Atlanta at the time. Eventually, everything kind of merged together into one big Dallas office. Our corporate office stayed in Schaumburg and later moved to Schiller Park, Illinois. And then we had all of our branch offices in every major city. And this program was a major project for the company in order to bridge all of those gaps and not have every division running off their own software, because that's essentially what was happening. We were using Avail in some properties, R2 in other properties, Salesforce in some properties. The hotels had this program called Lynx. We were basically merging all of those together into one piece of software called Helios that we were designing ourselves. We ended up rolling out that software. We ended up being very successful, getting it into all the hotels, all the branch offices. Was very happy with it. I learned a lot, got to meet a lot of cool people around the company, got to make a little bit of a name for myself. And as soon as that program neared the end, neared completion, and the team didn't need to be as big as it was anymore, I was working at the branch office under Doug Johnston, and with that team, with Ed Eggersheim, Steve DeBastiani. I developed a rapport with them, and it seemed to be the best possible move, since my position at the Omni had been filled while I was on this team, to move into a branch role and become a project manager. So my time on the Helios team ended, which it did for a lot of folks. They did keep a few people on as like a help desk and as bug development and things like that. But I was happy. My role was done. I was definitely ready for the next challenge. And it had been about a year and a half. So we're into about 2007. I started the Omni in 2005. Yeah, we're talking about 2007 at this point. So being a project manager, project sales manager was a lot of fun. It was an incredible challenge. I never thought in my early years that I'd be prepared to be a project manager. It just seemed like there were so many plates that they were keeping up from falling that it wouldn't be feasible for someone like me. And jumping into it was great. Having Doug Johnston as a mentor and a leader for me was phenomenal, because he was also a project manager before he took over the director of sales and operations for the office. So I had him, my good friend Ed from the hotel days was also a project manager over there. Our career path kind of met here as well. And I was scared shitless. I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. There's a lot of responsibility being a project manager. You're responsible for all of the labor. You're responsible to make sure all of the equipment shows up. You're responsible to make sure people are getting paid. You're responsible for that being a profitable job. I don't know how difficult I thought it was going to be, but it ended up being way more difficult because of that one factor. And essentially managing the profit line for everything that was going out of that building. So for me personally, having people that I was working with that understood the role and understood what the job entailed was great. I really loved working with a team of people that knew how to get the job done, that I could copy. I could start to build my own way of doing things. I could start to build the Mark way of project management. And we did some amazing shows. We did some stuff that was really a lot of fun. I'm kind of hoping I can get Doug on here and do a quick interview with him, and we could talk about some of the fun things we did. But from our days, we had a shop in Needham that moved to a bigger shop in Needham, that moved to a massive shop in Dedham, Massachusetts. Our time in those places was spent just being ultra creative. How can we separate ourselves from the competition? What can make us a differentiator? And we did that. We were doing some really fun stuff. We were doing mapping before mapping was really a thing on some of our scenic pieces. We were doing a lot of high definition stuff before that was really a thing. We were getting into satellite links between properties and really understanding where the technology was going so that we could stay ahead of that curve. So again, I took my growth seriously. And I think that Doug took that growth seriously as well. I think he really wanted to see us succeed. And I feel like he saw a little bit of me in him and he wanted to see me succeed. So we spent a lot of time briefing and debriefing about events. And he made up these words. He verbified a lot of things and I still use them to this day. But we would Kahootify, which was going in his office, writing on whiteboards, writing on flip charts, figuring out the soup to nuts of a show, how to make a show a full salad. And I really appreciate that because I still use that to this day. I love to sit down and collaborate. It was an incredible place for me to really understand where I wanted to go, how I was going to work with teams, and what collaboration was going to be like going forward. And I still use a lot of the practices that Doug and the team and Eddie and I had. It was a great place to hone those skills. And I thank Doug for that. He'll never understand what that meant to me, but he was also not scared to do a lot of the challenging things. And he wasn't scared if there was an opportunity for us to do something that maybe didn't have a financial benefit, but could get PSAV recognition, PSAV Boston recognition, as well as me as Mark Consiglio could get me some recognition. We did a lot of really cool events. We did some stuff for Best Buy that was a lot of fun. We did a concert in the parking lot. We did some projection production in the store for one of their grand openings. One thing that really sticks out to me, we did some amazing shows, but like, at the time in Massachusetts, we were working on with one particular partner that was producing a special election night event for Scott Brown. Scott Brown became our senator in 2010, I believe this all happened. It might have been late 2009. Early 2010. It's all a bit of a jumbled mess, but we were working with a partner of ours that was also a freelancer of ours, whose name is John Maxon, who was working with the Mass GOP, essentially the Republican committee in Massachusetts. And when Senator Ted Kennedy died, they had to have a special election. So we had a Democrat and a Republican. I think it was, I can't remember who the Democrat was. I think it was Coakley, who's actually doing things now in Massachusetts, and then Scott Brown. And because we were working on the Mass GOP side, we were doing the Republican Party on election night. John and his team were like, have fun with it. You know, here's our budget. Here's the amount of money we have. But if you guys can really add to this, we're very interested in what you can do. And it was at the Park Plaza in Boston. We had this budget that really couldn't do much with, but Doug and I sat in a room and said, let's at least cover our costs. Let's do something that's going to get us some notoriety nationally, because this was going to be all over the national news. And we did that. We covered our costs. We didn't need to subrent anything from any of our partners. We kept everything in-house. We just made sure the labor got paid. And what a show. I'll see if I can put some overlays up while I'm talking about this. It was an amazing show. We did 3-screen projection on the stage, which if you've ever been in the Park Plaza in Boston, there's not a lot of room on that stage. We did, we had a couple of bands. Scott Brown's daughter is Ayla Brown, who was on American Idol a year or two before this, or maybe 3 years before this. So she had some notoriety. She was famous locally. She was performing. She was there. We also, Scott's wife was a news anchor on the news. So like they were fairly famous in Massachusetts. There was a lot of positive public opinion for them, and they were all moderately famous. Then Doug Flutie got involved, he was a New England Patriot. He played for BC, was a hero in the football world up here. He ended up having a band, so he played, and a couple other bands played. So we had to build this stage that was band friendly, national act friendly. We also had a lot of lighting. We had a ton of projection on stage. We had a lot of logos that I created for Mass GOP. They gave me like the Scott Brown logo, and then we did some really cool stuff to make it 3D, to make it move, to do some stuff that, again, I learned from my days working at the TD Garden for Mitch, how to have things constantly moving, how to have interstitials, how to have graphics that were going to keep everybody excited about what was happening. So I took all that knowledge and I brought my computer, and we just built all these graphics so that we had Ayla Brown graphics, Scott Brown graphics. That show went so well, and we put our heart and soul into that event as a team. And we got to a point where we had TVs in the room, and we had this whole mess of stuff to keep all these TVs on. It was before HD. It was before a lot of digital signal. We were running coax throughout this ballroom. And all of a sudden they show a shot while the election's happening. You know, this is the party. This is the headquarters. They show a shot of the Democrat Party at the Sheraton Boston, which is my first place, my first property that I worked at. I love that building, but they didn't have as much to work with. You know, they probably had the same budget we did, but didn't have the same leadership and the same mentor that I had in Doug to say, who cares if this doesn't make money? Let's just not lose money, because this is going to be on TV. This is going to mean a lot more to us. And there'll be some bragging rights once we can say, you know, we were on TV. This is national. When they showed the 2-shot of our building and what we were doing and what the Sheraton was doing, it's not a knock on the Sheraton team at all. And I know my really good friend Rick Boynton was a part of that set, and he was managing it. He worked with what he had to work with, and they basically had a lit stage. They had some audio, and they had a big flag that was lit, while we had this concert looking extravaganza happening in ours. And that 2-shot just looked like you knew who was going to win, and you knew what the outcome was going to be at 5 p.m. based on that 2-shot. I don't think I have any pictures of that. This was kind of before cell phone cams were really the norm or any good, so I don't have a ton of pictures from that event, but what an amazing shot that was. And that drove everyone on my team in that building to want to win and to want to make this better. And wow, look at how great this room looks on CNN and Fox News. And then inevitably it came to that point where Scott Brown came out and said, you know, we won. The Democrats have conceded and we won. And whatever your political leanings are, or wherever you fit into the whole spectrum, it doesn't matter. This was a job. This was a party. This was something that we were working on, and we won. The people that we were working with won. And I had graphics ready to go to throw up that said victory. And we just had some great shots of this. It was so much fun, and the team was so invested in it. And I had all of my leadership behind me saying, yes, let's do what we can, because this is going to be such a big thing. And on all the big screens, we had victory and we won and all the confetti's going off and everything was amazing. And then Matt Geiser, who I talked about in the last episode, we were a show team, me, Matt, Wayne. Matt's running the switch and he goes, Mark, you gotta put this up. And it was the shot of the ballroom in the Sheraton after the concession speech. There was no one there. It was empty. There was a couple people on stage. The room was completely empty. They knew that it was over. We put that on the screen in the room and the place erupted. It was an unbelievable feeling to just hear that roar because everyone knew that it was that much sweeter. And then the party went on and the bands played and we had some things. Ayla went up and it was just a magical night and I'll never forget it. That event coupled with a few other events that we did that year, some national accounts, not a lot of them I can really talk about because they're just, they're corporate events. A lot of that work got me a little bit of notoriety within the company, and I ended up getting notification in late 2010. I'd been a PM for 3 years now, that I had been nominated for an Employee Excellence Award at PSAV. I was like, this is it, right? This is all I knew at this point in my life, was that the PSAV was the end all be all for me. There was never going to be anything else. I was going to spend my life here and I wanted to do what I was doing forever. This was it. And they wanted to recognize me for being a leader and for an innovator and someone in the business. And I found out that I was nominated by a few people for a particular award called the Experience Business Award. And at the time we had these core values and the experience business was something that we held as a tenet almost. It was like, we don't sell AV. We don't do this. We're not a production company. We are in the experience business. And I love that terminology. I still use that to this day. We sell experiences. We are in the experience business. So to get an award or to be nominated for an award that was called the Experience Business Award was just mind-boggling to me. And to know that I got nominated by people that I respected and people that I felt were way higher than I was in the company, meant the world to me. It was emotional for me. And what that meant was people had to vote, and there was some online voting, and if you got to the final three, then you got sent to the it was basically, for a while it was called the Global Leadership Meeting. I can't remember what we called it back in 2010, but it was the all company meeting for all of the leaders. Essentially it was the Global Leadership Meeting. And we were all sent to that, and we got to participate in every part of that event as if we were part of the global leadership team, which is really where I got to see this is where I want to be. Like I'm with people that are making decisions and that are working with teams nationally and globally. This is really where I want to be. This is an amazing place. And I fell in love with it instantaneously. And I got to see all the different teams. I got to meet the digital services team. I got to meet the product management team. I got to meet the creative services team, which was, I was blown away at how, just how amazing and how resourceful our company really was outside of my little Boston bubble. So, I had already had some rapport with some of these people. I had worked with the creative services team before. I had met with, Augie Delapi, who's someone that I really looked up to. He used to be our leader of the branches, that offsite branch division, event services division back in those days. So I had met him before and we had interacted. So seeing him there was great. I kind of had an acquaintance that I could say, hey man, how's it going? And there were a few other people there like that too. I had also met with some of the product management team, which we'll really dive into later. They had come out to our branch. We had one of these global leadership meetings in Boston once, and I was a technician managing that. So I get to meet some of these people. But long story short, we're having the awards, the Excellence Awards dinner. I'm sitting at my table. I don't think I'm going to win. One of the people that I was up against in the Experience Business Awards was a technical director, a TD for the company, Simo Sadiq, who I still greatly respect to this day. I love the guy. We worked together a lot and crossed paths a lot in PSAV and then later on in life. I thought he was going to win. He was constantly on the biggest shows. He was constantly working on with the biggest account executives, and he was just, I figured there's no way I can touch Simo. But you had to be voted on, and nationally it was one of those things that I think a lot of people saw the Scott Brown work. I think a lot of people on the sales team were really happy with how they didn't have to worry about Boston when they sold a show. If they were a national account, JL Lagasty was someone I worked with a lot. They didn't have to worry about sending their shows to Boston or if their shows were in Boston, because we were going to take care of it. And I think I got a lot of votes for that reason. So ultimately, I've still got it. It's a little dirty, but I won 2010 Excellence Award, Experience Business Award winner. I'm super proud of this award because of the blood, sweat, and tears that it took, the hours, the experience that I had to gain in order to get this award. I'm still super proud of it. It will be in every office of mine forever. Even when I work for a different company, like right now at Four Wall, I still have a PSAV award up. I still have a lot of my PSAV stuff is still up because I'm just super proud of the experience that I got. To get Technician of the Year award in 2004 that you can't see because it's not in the camera. Some of these other things are just, I'm proud of those. So they go up. So I won the award, and instantaneously my stock in the company it went up. I started to get at that dinner and at the party after, hey, Mark, we think you'd be a great addition to our team, or we think you'd be great, over here on this team, or we think your project management experience is getting talked about a lot. You might want to join the national team. You might want to join the Show Solutions team. I started to get options within the company that I did not realize were options and were things that were available to me. I started to see this new place that I could go to where there was more opportunity than I ever really would have imagined. All these new positions, all this new stuff. Ultimately, at that dinner, Matt Johnson was at my table. Matt is now Vice President of Product Management at Encore Global. At the time, he was just the director of product management, and a product manager himself. He had his own line, and he had said to me, we've got an opening for a product management position. I think I'd like to have you on the team. And I was really interested because not only do I completely love the execution of the show and making the show happen and the financials and the planning and everything that goes into it, but I am a gear nerd. For anyone that doesn't know me, I love the technology. I love playing with the toys that makes the show happen. And Matt, if I joined his team, I'd get to play with toys a lot. I'd even get to develop a lot of the toys and the packages and the solutions and things that were going to go out to the field. It took a while. It took a few months. It was, I want to say, March 2011 is probably when I officially joined the product management team from the project management team in Boston. So now I'm on Matt Johnson's team. I'm a product management specialist. And I joined a team of people that had been in that in their roles for a while. Jacob Engel was audio product manager. I'd known him for a while. We were pretty good friends to that point, just through PSAV and social media. Jason Satterfield was also a product management specialist like myself. He was handling GAV, general audiovisual things, screens, rigging, power. I think at the same time I was hired is when they hired Chris Wissinger, who was the video product manager. I think we started at the same exact time because I think we were both kind of applying for that position. And then I ended up taking lighting and IT because I was pretty good at the IT stuff already. And I think Matt was the lighting and IT, or Matt was the lighting product manager. We had an IT product manager that ended up leaving. So what Matt wanted to do was hire one person to take on lighting and IT so that he could manage the department. And what an experience, what an opportunity for growth for me to go from a regional person that thought that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, and being in Boston and maybe doing some regional stuff or national stuff from time to time was really where I wanted to be. From taking that and just zooming out even further into national, a real national role, and never knowing until the opportunity was given to me at this award ceremony that these jobs exist and that I don't need to move to Schiller Park or Schaumburg to do these roles, that I can do them from Boston. I could be remote. So I got to give it up to that team. I mean, Annette Moody was our leader. She was the senior vice president of product management. Matt was our director that ultimately became our VP, and was an incredible leader. I'm not going to waste any more time today talking about this particular team. I'm going to save an entire episode for my product management days, because talk about growth, talk about management, talk about leadership, and being a sponge and all the things I learned. Every opportunity for me was an opportunity to learn and to educate myself and to really be a sponge. The days with Doug were awesome. I learned a lot. The days with Matt and the product management team were even more, just such a different type of learning and a different type of growth. But that's a good big market tease to sign off with here. Our next episode we'll continue on growth, but we'll talk about a lot of the product management days and understanding strategy a bit differently, understanding training and taking that regional management and really growing that to something that's a lot more national and global. But I gotta thank, Doug Johnson's awesome. Thank you so much for everything that you did for me. JL Lagosty was awesome. Ed Eggersheim being my counterpart. Thank you so much for everything that we did. All the freelancers, I can't name them all. There's just so many of them, but you guys were an extension of us, and you made me look really, really good in those years. I also have to thank JL Lagosty. I know I said your name before, but you trusted me with some really difficult shows and some things that were, maybe you would have sent in some national people to do. And I'm really happy that we built a rapport, and I'm glad that you were able to trust me for your Boston stuff. And then everyone that was involved in the global leadership meeting in 2010, everyone that was, everyone that believed in me and let me grow into the person that I have become, but also became that year. So we're only up to 2010, 2011 right now, or early 2011. There's still a lot of growth. There's a lot of experience. There's a lot of things to talk about in the next 15 years. I think the next episode will really tackle the product management, maybe some of the sports and entertainment years that I had at PSAV. And then we'll start to tackle life after PSAV, which was really the pandemic. We'll get into those times, how I got to where I'm at now at Four Wall. We've got a couple episodes left to really to catch up to where we're at now before we really start to talk about some self-help, some professional development. But this has been nice. It's been really therapeutic for me to get a lot of these stories out, to talk about things, to talk about how I got where I'm at. Hopefully this helps some people. I'm always happy to talk about your own personal growth strategy, where you want to be, how to get there. I do answer emails. I do answer direct messages. I find myself on TikTok and LinkedIn the most. It doesn't seem like a lot of this content is being eaten up on Instagram much. So leave comments or direct messages on TikTok. That's where a lot of the short form stuff goes. And all the long form stuff is on YouTube, obviously, with some shorts as well. And then, email. Feel free to shoot me a message. I'm more than happy to discuss and potentially turn this into more of a consulting thing for people and understanding their own path. So with that, I leave everyone. Hope that you are getting something out of this. I am personally. The numbers seem to think that people are interested in this type of content. I promise it's not all going to be me talking about myself, but I do want to get the career path out of the way so that we can start to talk about things and I can point to some stories that have already been established. So thank you everyone for listening. Thank you everyone for being a part of this journey with me. And as always, try to help someone out today. Thank you so much.